Good day, everyone. My name is Johaira Beda, and I am introducing our topic, which is the memory, and we are the group 4. And this presentation was prepared by me, Sagka Eliza, Iskak Tato Hasher, and Edward De Assis. And now let's proceed to the objectives. You will know the memory system of sensory register, short-term memory and long-term memory. Learn the working memory model of memory. Be familiar with the memory processes of encoding, storage, and retrieval, and understand the principles that govern encoding, storage, and retrieval, and learn about classic memory experiments used to arrive at these principles, and be acquainted with some of the strategies for improving memory and why these work, and understand how neurobiological systems constrain memory functioning. And now, let's talk about what is memory. Ano nga ba ang memory? Memory ba ito ng cellphone? But yes, kung ang cellphone ay may memory, ganun din ng ating brain. Meron din itong memory na nag-store ng information, and I will be explaining that later. So, memory is one of the most important cognitive functions, yet it is one of the easiest to overlook. People do not usually think about memory unless they are explicitly asked to recall a price of information. A task often required in formal school settings, but not much elsewhere. So, as you can see, memory is super important for our brains. But we often don't think about it unless we are asked to remember something specific. For example na lang kapag may recitation sa school and we need to remember our previous lesson or yung stock knowledge natin. And that is stored in our memory. And just like that, memory involved in pretty much everything we do. For example, like having conversations, solving problems, and interacting with others. Kahit yung mga maliliit na bagay like getting to school on time rely on memory. And this chapter is about studying human memory. It explains the basic ideas and how memory works, like how we can handle and change information. It talks about memory having three different systems, all doing similar things. Throughout the chapter, it focuses on things that affect memory, like forgetting stuff and how to improve our memory. So, memory is a big deal in everything we do, and this chapter explains how it works and how we can make it better. So, let's move on to the next topic. Memory has three something main topic: the process of memory, systems of memory, and strategies for improving memory. And now I am going to explain process of memory. In the process of memory, before you can remember something, your brain has to store it first. And think about all the things you remember right now. They are probably things you experience yourself, like seeing, hearing, or feeling something, or maybe someone told you about it. And this first experience with the information is called encoding. It's like your brain taking a snapshot of the experience so you can remember it later. So, what is encoding? During encoding, a person experiences an event and codes the information that can be derived from the event. This is when you first experience something, like seeing, hearing, or feeling it. And then your brain codes this information into a form it can understand and store. And this could be visual, like images, acoustic, like sounds, or semantic, like meanings. And so, for example, imagine that you are baking cookies with your grandma, and as you mix the ingredients, your brain encodes the smell of the dough, and the warmth of the oven, and the sound of your grandma's laughter. And naka-encode na ito sa brain mo, and that is encoding can happen without you consciously trying to remember it. So let's proceed to the storage. This process involves maintaining the code information within the memory system. So once information is encoded, it's stored in your memory for later use. Many things can be stored for a long time, like skills you haven't used in a while or memories from years ago. Just like the example kanina, even after the cookies are baked and eaten, yung memory mo sa pag-bake kasama ang lola mo is nanatili yun sa memory mo. Kasi kumbaga sa files, nakasave na siya sa brain mo. And you may not think about it every day, but it's there, ready to be recalled. So in retrieval, the third process of memory, which involves finding the information in storage and then bringing it to awareness and consciousness. It is when you need to remember something, your brain retrieves the information from storage. For example, years later, when you smell freshly baked cookies, yung memory mo ng pagbe-bake with your grandma comes flooding back. You remember the joy of spending time together and the delicious treats you made. So, in retrieval, there are two typical forms of retrieval: recall and recognition. In recall, the person has to deliberately search through memory for a particular piece of information and report it if found. This is like when you are trying to remember something on your own without any hints or help. You have to actively search your memory to find the specific information you are looking for. For example, if someone asks you to remember your favorite childhood toy and then iisipin mo pa, kumbaga, i-recall mo pa kung ano yung toy na yun, and after that, you tell them what it was. So that's how recall works. So with recognition, the information to be retrieved is actually presented to the person, after which the person reports whether he remembers it or not. And this is when someone or something reminds you of a piece of information. It's like when you see or hear something familiar and it triggers your memory. For example, if you see a photo of your childhood toy, you might recognize it and remember mo that it was your favorite. And you don't have to actively search for the information, it's presented to you, and you just have to decide if you remember it or not. And that is how the processes of memory works. And now let's proceed to the next reporter.
So, we'll be discussing the system of memory. We'll start with Atkinson and Schifrin. So, Atkinson and Schifrin and several other psychologists who adapted or revised their model of memory have conceptualized memory as having three systems. Yung tatlong system na yun are the sensory register, the short-term memory, and the long-term memory. So, si Atkinson and Schifrin, along with other psychologists, are famous their ideal works regarding kung paano ang memory mag-function. So, they come up with an idea of our memory has tatlong parts, which is yung nasabi ko kanina. Yung una is sensory memory. Ang sensory memory ay nag-hold what we see, what we hear, etc. Now, for the short-term memory, ito yung nag-hold ng ating information for a very short time, which will explain later. So, holding term memory. Ito na yung mga part na where memory sticks around for a long time and will also be explained later sa next slide. Itong sila, they help us understand how our memory stores and process in our mind. Next slide, please. The sensory register stores information from our physical stimuli in the environment, along our senses and responds to physical energy of various forms from different stimuli. Like I said before, ang sensory memory holds with what we see and what we hear. Kumbaga, it's like a temporary storage in our space in our brains, where information from our senses na galing dito ay pumapasok kung saan sa ating nakikita, naririnig, or sa paghawak. And it will be get stored on a very short time. Now, magbigay ako ng example. For example, when we see a flash lightning or hear sudden noise, yung mga kidlat bigla maganon, bigla magtalubog. Yung information na galing nakita natin sa bagay na yun will stays in our sensory register before yung mag-decide yung brain natin kung anong bagay, kung whether i-keep ba tong important enough or just forget about it. Yung experience na yun, yung nabigla nagkiklat, uy, syempre nagulat ka doon. Yung brain mo lang, naka-decide kung gusto mo gawin isang core memory to. Hindi man actually core memory, kung gusto mo i-keep itong isang memory na to or hindi. Yun ang function ng sensory register. It's like our brain way finds a quickly checking on what's happening around us and deciding anong gawin itong sa information na to. Next, next we'll be talking about the short-term memory. As we will elaborate on later, short-term memory will includes information constantly for the short memory frame and very limited for storage capacity and retraining information for as long as the person sent should attend and process information. So short-term memory is like a memory nasa, you know, magbigay nila ako example para maintindihan nyo. Imagine, it's a memory, it's like a notepad where you jot down and small bits of information by immediate use. It holds into something temporary, usually about mga 20 to 30 seconds lang. Kapag maglagay ka ng isang bagay dun sa notebook, dun, mawawala din ka agad about 20 to 30 seconds lang. Before they fade away or mag-replace sa bagong information, itong notepad na to has limited space only. And it's capable of holding up to a few items at a time. So, just like quickly jotting down on notes on a PDF page or short-term memory, it helps us track ano yung mga importanteng bagay na naka-design para sa notebook na yun. And third, the long-term memory. Long-term memory is made up of large and amount of transmetic information accumulated for over the years from as far as your childhood as you recently in morning or 10 minutes ago. Ang long-term memory is like a giant library of your brain where nakastore lahat ng mga bagay na doon. Hindi lang nakapasok yung experience sa buhay mo, pati na rin yung mga iba-ibang information from your childhood memories or sa isang or breakfast mo, kanina umaga. Pwede na yun. Kumbaga, basically, yung brainwave mo is nag-hold into something important for you to remember na even after a lot of time pass, andyan pa rin din siya. Nakastay pa rin siya. Yan ang purpose ng long-term memory. Procedural memory or memory of procedures and skills such as swimming, driving, and typing. Ito na yung memory mo where naaalala mo agad yung skill. For example, magbabike ka and then naginto ka, nagbike for at least 3 months. Yung parang muscle memory mo sa pagbabike na yun, maaalala mo kagad yung isang bagay na yun. Bakit? Kasi nasa memory mo na nakapag-bike ka dati. Tapos inadapt mo lang ng gano'n sa isang bagay na yun. So, somehow, yung skill na yun, naalala mo pa from your previous ago. So, active memory. Declarative memory or memory of various sorts of knowledge is turned out to be classified into semantic memory or facts such as the names provided in Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and epidoic memory or memory of particular events in your life such as your prom night or graduation ball or what you have done breakfast this morning. So, explain ko na lahat. Ang declarative memory daw, kumbaga ito lang yung memory nagbibigay ng facts or information about sa'yo. Hmm, dito na yung mga natutunan mo sa school or mga quotes na katulad nito. Ang naaalala ko yung quote ni Miyamoto Musashi, Japanese philosopher. Yung sinabi niya is, sa mga quote niya, accept everything the way it is. Through that, yung memory ko, naalala ko yan dahil may nabasa ko isang bagay, isang facts na about sa sinabi niya. Yan ang cause ng declarative memory. Next will be semantic memory. Ito yung part where your memory stores up general knowledge and facts, knowing that the names of cities and historical events, which yung binigay ko na example kanina is the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Somehow you remember those names dahil sa semantic memory. Next is episodic memory. This is your memory for specific events, episode in your life. Halimbawa nito is during your birthday, last birthday party mo, or what you ate during last night. Ano yun? Parte yun ng episodic memory. Siya nag-hold ng isang memory na yun. Next slide. Working memory model. It is the passageway of introducing Bodley's working memory model as an alternative to the serial view of memory. In this model, working memory consisted of both short-term memory and long-term memory components, and it's involved in active processing during tasks. So, imagine ang brain mo is a busy workshop, constantly tinkering and working on tasks. Ang body's working memory model is like a supervisor in this workshop. Supervisor sa isang workshop na yun. Kumbaga nakikita niya lahat sa mga ginagawa niya dun ng mga coworkers niya. Instead of just a simple short-term memory where you temporarily store yung mga information na bagay na yun, working memory is more like, kumbaga, parang dynamic sa isang workplace na yun. It holds into information pero temporary lang siya, but also active when gumagana isang bagay na to. It's like ano ba, a desk where you can just wrote down mga notes. Yun ang function ng short memory. But meron siyang isang reference book na nakikita. Yun na naman ang function ng long-term memory. Nearby, it helps you work sa isang task niyo. So, when you're solving a problem or following instruction, yun, ang working memory is helps you keeps everything organized sa isang motion or constantly processing, manipulating information para matapos itong isang bagay na to. Okay, we'll be talking about central executive. So, central executive controls attention and supervises memory tasks. Kumbaga, think of this like a boss in your brain. Sila yung nag-control what you say or pay attention sa isang bagay na to sa pagmamanage ng task. Ganon ang central executive. So, visual-spatial sketch 5 stores and manipulated visual and spatial information. Kumbaga, this is like your mental or whiteboard visual stuff. It helps you remember or and work with things you see kung sa whether sa Max Proto or sa diagram. Katulad ng maps or diagram. Makita mo yung isang bagay na nakita mo habang nagtatrabaho ka. Next is phonological loop. It stores and manipulates speech and related information. This is your mental recorder for sounds. It helps you remember and play with spoken information like phone numbers and instruction between someone gives you. Episodic buffer. Ang episodic buffer acts as an interface between working memory and a long-term memory, integrating information from different sources for problem solving and planning. Now, para maintindihan niyo to, imagine may isang bridge between your short-term memory and a long-term memory. Tapos, and this bridge, it helps you put together into different piece of information from different sources. Halimbawa nito, pag blending ng anong nakita mo or narinig mo or maybe pati na experience mo where it help you conceive memory from problem solving or sa pagpaplano ng isang bagay. Next, we have parallel distributed processing model. This model is process that memory consists of interconnected networks made up of numerous processing information simultaneously. Memory operates in a parallel and distributed manner, with information stored across several units. For you to understand that, I'll be explaining. Baga, imagine your memory is like a giant web where everything is connected. Sa web na yun, there are a lot of little units working together sa isang bagay. Instead of one big memory na bank doon, your brain stores information in network dots. Kumbaga, when you remember something, it's not just one dot nang umalabas, but several dots ang lumalabas. Parang fina-fire niya at once isang bagay. Itong model na to, yung brain mo nag-process and stores information spreading across the dots na yun. And they were all working together to help you remember things. Next slide, please. Encoding. Encoding information needs to be encoded into format in the memory system that can be handled before can be remembered. So, encoding is like translating information into language from your brain for you to understand. Just like converting or pag-convert ng isang message sa Morse code or pagta-translate ito sa book into another language. Kung yung brain mo, siya ang nag-help mag-encode ng isang bagay na yun. Mga pinag-iisipan mo talaga todo ng mabuti. For example, since nakabasa ka ng Bisaya post sa FB, tapos yung brain mo somehow gina-convert nito into Tagalog for you to understand ng mabuti. Yan ang function ng encoding. So, primacy is the effect of free recall. This passage discusses the primacy recently affects the observed free recall task where subject tends to be pretend beginning of the list of for those in the middle. When you ask to remember a list of things like words or numbers, you might find that you remember the items in the beginning and like the better ones in the middle. Kumbaga, ang primacy effect means remember things. Siya nag-aalala ng isang bagay. So, primacy effect naman. So primacy effect, this effect refers to enchanted memory or enhanced memory performance for items at the beginning of the presentation sequence. So primacy effect, imagine you given a list words to remember. Ang primacy effect is helps you what remember yung mga words na binibigay na list from before for you to be better sa isang bagay na words na yun. This happened because you had more time to focus on those words. So they stuck in your memory better. Now, magbigay ako ng example. Di ba, kapag inutusan kayo ng nanay nyo, magbili ng isang sa tindahan, tulad ng itlog, paminta, sabon, itlog, paminta, sabon, itlog, paminta, sabon. See, parang paulit-ulit mo yung isang bagay na yun. Ang reason na bakit pinaulit-ulit mo yung bagay na isa na yun, yes, for you, na maalala mo yun siya. Same goes sa pag-memorize ng natin sa isang subject na to. Kapag may quiz tayo, kailangan natin mag-memorize. So, pinaulit-ulit natin yung word na yun para for you to memorize it. Yan ang effect ng primacy effect. Inuulit-ulit yung word na yun for you to memorize it. Recently effect. This effect refers to enhance the memory performance items by the end of presentation sequence. So recently effect, now think about the end of the list. Ang recency effect is when you remember the words were at the end better ones or in the middle or the beginning. This happened because those words are still fresh in your mind. When you're asked, you recall them, they're easier to remember. Parang mas madali sa'yo na maalala itong isang bagay nito at the end kaysa simula or nasa middle. Kasi kung sa end, mas naaalala mo itong isang bagay nito kasi sa tapos na yun, doon na siya sa dulo. Next slide will be not all forms of rehearsal equally effective. However, thus far of forms have been defined, namely maintenance and elaborative. So, ang the level of processing principle as proposed by Lerk and Mockhart in 1972, sila ang nag-suggest that the way we process information or we try to remember, it affects on how we all remember it. In simpler terms, how deeply we think about or emerge information while we're trying to remember, nakadetermine ito sa kung paano natin ito remember later on. So if we gonna focus talaga sa isang bagay na nagbibigay ng meaning or significance about something na parang we're trying to remember, it's like we're likely to remember it. Kasi we usually casually glance isang bagay. Next will be maintenance rehearsal. Similar in what you do when you are given a new telephone number or what you did then. You were required to remember poems in grade school. So, in the 19 in the study of Branchford in 1972, illustrated the level of processing principle by revealing what we emerge information or a deeper during memory encoding, such as imagining what they could do sa object or picture na yun. So they recall the more object compared to those who engage with the information such as yung mga searching ng specific object na yun or paggagawa ng isang bagay na nag-process na information kung saan tinatry natin alalahanin yun. In short, yung maintenance rehearsal daw, parang it's like repeatedly saying or memorizing yung isang telephone number na yun or a poem without really trying to understand or nakakonect sa isang bagay sa information na yun. So, next will be elaborative rehearsal. It appears more effective in a long term. This form of rehearsal involves of thinking about the materials way in that may relate to other information you know. So, ang elaborative rehearsal involves recorrecting new information that you already know. This is better for a long-term memory because it helps you understand and relate information you learned before. For example, may naalala ka yung katulad ng isang bagay na naintindihan mo naman. So once na naintindihan mo naman, tapos kapag in-explain sa'yo ulit to, mas malala mo ulit and magiging long-term memory na to siya sa'yo. Kasi yun na eh, naalala mo na siya, naintindihan mo na rin. Kaya mas effective talaga if magsa-study ka, intindihin mo muna siya bago mo memorize. Kasi kung i-memorize mo lang, sooner or later, baka makakalimutan mo yung for you to easily memorize na isang bagay na to, mas madala intindihin. Next slide. Level of processing principle. Like I said before, yung study nila Bransford and Frank in 1977, they illustrated the level of processing principle by revealing people who emerge information and imagining the world. Just like searching for a specific object, this shows that we may process information that we're trying to remember insignificantly in fact. So next will be study by Bransford, Illich, and Prax in 1977. So sila dalawa, si nag-introduce sila ng concept of transfer appropriate processing, which suggests that the memory performance isn't influenced by how deeply we process during information and encoding, but also whether the process and matches with the retrieval later on. Next is transfer appropriate processing. Si Martis and Belford Franks found memory performance depends only on depth of processing during encoding, but also where the processing during encoding appropriates required during rehearsal. So, in this study, sa 1977 nila, si Frank daw pati si Bransford nag-introduce siya ng concept ng appropriate processing. Kumbaga, sinuggest nila that ang memory performance isn't just influence how deeply we process ang isang information na yon. Pero during nung encoding natin, yung pag-explain ko kanina, whether ang isang process na ito ay now match or not sa later on, if you're trying to remember something, this will help you understand initially. And lastly, we have improving memory using the level of processing principle. So the passage suggests that the various strategies for improving memory, such as relating new information to existing knowledge, or organizing information in meaningful ways, evaluating, analyzing information using visualization, verbalization techniques. To improve ang memory using level of processing principle, you can use few simple strategies. Ang first is connect the new information things, yung alam mo na. Pangalawa, eh, is organize yung mga information na yun to maging sense sa'yo. So, kailangan natin analyze ito for you to understand the meaning. And finally, the use of technique of visualizing or saying information out loud to reduce your mind, to reinforce your mind. These strategies help you process information deeply and making it more easier to remember.
So, good day, ma'am. So, I am here to explain my topic. It's all about storage. So, first, let's discuss the storage capacity of our short-term memory, focusing on what psychologists have dubbed the magic number of 7. plus or minus 2 as coined by Miller in 1956. These magic numbers refers to the limits of items an average person can hold in their short-term memory at once, which is approximately 7 items, give or take 2. So to understand this better, Simon's study in 1974 delved into different types of stimuli such as one-syllable words like dog, two-syllable words like table, and even longer phrases like all is fair in love and war. He found that regardless of whether the stimuli were words or phrases, the magic number remained consistent. This suggests that it's not necessarily about the number of words or syllables, but rather the number of distinct items being remembered. So when we think about our daily tasks like remembering phone numbers or license plates, they typically fall within the range to avoid overwhelming our short-term memory capacity. In essence, the magic number of 7 plus or minus 2 give us insight into the limits of our short-term memory storage capacity, influencing how we design system and tasks to accommodate this cognitive constraint. So, Simon's magic number theory posits that short-term memory can typically hold around 7 plus or minus 2 chunks or meaningful units of information. So, however, this capacity can vary based on the size and nature of the chunks. So, for example, short-term memory can hold fewer large chunks like long long phrases and more smaller chunks like short words as illustrated in table 7.1. Chunking involves organizing information into smaller, manageable units, making it easier to remember. So, for example, instead of trying to recall all 15 digits individually, you can chunk them into meaningful groups like 149, 625, 364, 969, and 481. This approach make it much easier to remember the sequence because you're dealing with fewer, more meaningful, more meaningful chunks rather than a long string of digits. So the takeaway is that chunking relies on encoding information in a meaningful way, which is facilitated by organized knowledge stored in long-term memory. This organized knowledge acts as a framework for chunking during encoding, ultimately enhancing memory storage capacity. So, by organizing and understanding information effectively, we can improve our memory abilities. So, let's proceed into the theories of forgetting, which is the decay versus interference. Um, decay theory suggests that memories fade over time until they vanish completely. In contrast, interference theory purposes that memories don't fade but can be disrupted or overwritten by other memories or information. Interference come into two forms, which is the retroactive and proactive interference. Retroactive interference occurs when a new information displaces old information. So, example, the name of a person you just met at the party may be forgotten as you are told the name of the more people at the party. While proactive interference happens when old information hinders the memory of a new information. So the example of this is remembering the names of so many people in the party prevents you from remembering the new ones. So let's proceed to the retrieval and reconstruction. Retrieval and reconstruction and process um, the retrieval process in memory is often initiated by retrieval cues, which can be explicit prompts or subtle stimuli like words, sound, smell, or moods. These cues trigger the recall of specific information stored in memory even without deliberate intention. So, what make a good retrieval cue? Effective retrieval cues are typically strongly associated with the information being recalled. They can be contextually or semantically related to the target memory, making it easier to retrieve. So, for example, remembering a person name when smelling a familiar fragrance work because the scent is strongly linked to the memory of that person. So, in essence, the retrieval of cues depends on the strength and specificity of their associated with the target memory. Understanding this mechanism can help us enhance memory retrieval and better comprehend how memories are reconstructed and retrieved in everyday life. So next is the encoding specificity retrieval retrieval. So the encoding specificity principle of retrieval suggests that memory retrieval is more effective when the cues present during retrieval closely resemble those present during encoding. This principle is um, this this principle is exemplified in everyday situations, such as when you forget something you intended to upon entering different room, you might return to the original room to trigger the cues associated with the memory. So, furthermore, mood-independent memory, as demonstrated by Bower, Monteiro, and Gigilian, 1978, um, illustrates that encoding specificity principles. Subjects in positive mood more readily record pleasant events, while those in negative mood record more unpleasant events. So, in essence, the encoding specificity principle highlights the importance of similarity between retrieval cues and encoding condition for effective memory recall.
Strategies for improving memories. So, why should we need to study strategies to improve our memories? It is because estudyante tayo at kailangan natin i-memorize yung mga topic na na-discuss sa school. Lalo na pag sa exam, kailangan masyado natin magbasa, mag-review, para makapasa tayo sa exam. So, strategies for improving memory. Many people think that studying how human memory works is important insofar as it reveals ways by which people can improve their memories. For based on all the principles about human memory discussed so far. So, i-discuss ko po kung paano natin i-improve yung memory natin. So, first is the SQ3R techniques, which is the survey, question, read, recite, review. So, first is i-survey natin yung mga mahahalagang teksto sa books natin at isulat ito sa isang paper. Then, second is questionin mo yung sarili mo sa mga like sa definition. Sabihin mo yung definition, then sagutan mo yung tamang answers. The third is read. So, kailangan mong magbasa ng magbasa upang masaulo mo yung iyong nire-review. And second is recite. Kailangan mong i-recite ito para hindi mo ito madaling malimutan. And the last one is review. Pagkatapos mong gawin yung survey question, read, recite, then you need to review it. kailangan mo din itong i-review at i-recall para hindi mo madaling malimutan. So the next is verbal organization. Specific strategies have been proposed to help people remember memory lists, and these strategies are called mnemonics. So ito po yung mga strategies, verbal organization strategies para mga specific na strategies para mas madali natin maalala or mag-improve yung memory natin. So first is method of lossy. This method utilizes imaginary as a means to facilitate encoding, storage, or retrieval. A person or visualizes each of the items to be remembered in different spatial locations. Example is different parts of the house. So, method of loss is, ito po yung ginagawa natin na nagsusulat tayo sa paper tapos dinidikit kung saan-saan. For example, may recitation ka tomorrow, kailangan mong isulat yung mga importanteng text sa isang paper. Tapos, idikit mo to kung saan ka masyado pumupunta. For example, sa lababo. Like, paghuhugas mo ng plato, kailangan mo idikit ito sa harap po upang maalala mo ito at hindi mo ito malilimutan dahil nare-recall mo yung mga kailangan mong i-review. And the next one is PEG method. Strategy that uses imaginary in the PEG method. First, mental pegs are created. These are items that are easy to remember. For example, numbers of rhymes. The items to be remembered are then attached to or associated with pegs by forming images that comprise the peg and the item to remember when the items are to be recalled. The pegs are the first retrieved, after which attach after. Also retrieve this facility. So, ang peg methods po is ito yung like gagawan mo to ng kanta. For example, may paborito kang kanta, then papalitan mo yung mga lyrics niya ng mga kailangan mong i-recall. Like for example, sa periodic table. So, mamimili ka ng kanta, then palitan mo yung mga lyrics niya ng mga hydrogen, ganun. And the next is keyword technique. So, ito yung keyword techniques is, ilalagay mo lang is yung mga keyword. Like, ilalagay mo lang sa papers yung mga keyword, yung mga importante. Then, pag nabasa mo yun, maalala mo na kung ano yung ibig sabihin noon. Next is the memory disorders. So, alam naman natin na may mga tao talagang may memory disorders, yung madaling makalimot, hindi makaalala kung ano ang nangyari sa past, or pag nagbabasa sila, pag mamaya nakalimutan nila yung ginabasa nila. Kasi ganun ako. The strategies for improving memory discussed earlier will most likely no work for people with memory disorders. So far, all the discussions in this chapter focus on memory of people with normal brain functioning. There are, however, individuals who suffer from specific types of damage to their brain and show drastic impairments in memory functioning. So, ito po yung mga taong nahihirapan i-recall yung mga memory nila. And the first memory disorders was anterograde amnesia. These individuals have no problems recalling events prior to the damage to the hippocampus, but cannot remember events experienced after the damage. So, ito po yung mga taong may problema sa hippocampus. So, ang hippocampus po ay part siya ng ating utak na nagatanggap at nagproproseso ng mga memories natin. Ito ay bahagi ng limbic system at na-process niyo yung memories natin. So, pag damage po yung hippocampus mo, that means mahirap ka na makaalala ng isang bagay or events. Next is Korsakoff syndrome. So, ang Korsakoff syndrome is, ito po yung nangyayari sa mga matatanda. Like, di ba yung mga matatanda, madalas sila hindi makaalala, tapos parang nawawala na yung memories nila. Like, may may lola ako, then yung lola ko, minsan natatawag niya ako sa pangalan ng kapatid ko. Kasi, siguro, partner ay symptoms na rin yun ng Korsakoff syndrome kasi medyo matanda na siya. Ganun po yung Korsakoff syndrome na like medyo nababanis na po yung memory nila kasi matatanda na po sila. So the next one is retrograde amnesia, where the damage is not localized to just one structure in the brain. Severe head injuries or brain concussions lead to symptoms of retrograde amnesia. These symptoms typically include memory loss for events prior to the event that caused the amnesia. So, ito po yung marami pong injuries sa utak. Like, for example, is na-disgrasya po, then, yung ulo mo yung na-damage. So, that means, yung utak mo is parang na-damage na rin. So, ito yung nagkukos ng amnesia. Like, wala na siyang maalala sa mga nakaraan na nangyari sa buhay niya. So, yun po yung retrograde amnesia. And the last one is Alzheimer's is a disease that has recently received much attention among the medical and clinical researchers and practitioners. Memory loss is thus one of the accompanying clinical symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. So, ito po yung mga, like, bago lang siya na disease na na-discover ng mga researchers or clinical researchers. So, ito yung Alzheimer's is isang sintomas nito is yung pagkawala ng memorya. Siya like hindi buong nawawala yung memorya mo, pero may mga memory tayo na nawawala. And that is Alzheimer's. And that's all. Thank you.